and continues to represent the height of sophistication, writing love songs that so resonated with audiences that have brought the pampered native of Peru, Indiana. Anybody here from Peru? Okay, not much gay spirit there. World-renowned through decades of hit songs written for Broadway and later the movies. You're the top, what is this thing called love, night and day, you do something to me, anything goes, I get a kick out of you, and on and on and on again. There are hundreds of familiar Cole Porter songs. Porter's famous lyrical wit, his musical dexterity, and his cultural sophistication were so pronounced that he himself became the subject of one of those fabulous artificial Hollywood movies, the Technicolor biopic Night and Day, in 1946, in which Porter was played by the movie's dreamiest leading man, Cary Grant. He was bisexual. In hindsight, it's amusing to watch this piece of Hollywood hokum that has little regard for the facts behind the facade. So amusing that in the second movie biography of Porter's life, 2004's DeLovely, that's just what Kevin Kline, who portrays Porter, and Ashley Judd as his wife, do. Yes, Porter was married, and yes, he was gay. And in DeLovely, we are shown that, and we are also witness to the myriad of reasons for the marriage and why it endured until death separated Porter and his wife, Linda Lee. Though it was rare in 2004, and still is, God damn it, to see a movie that so frankly portrayed the gay sexuality of a real-life person, neither DeLovely nor Night and Day completely captured the complexities of the one-of-a-kind artist that Porter was. But both are marvelous showcases for his songs, those amazing songs that are as fresh and tart and lush as they were when first written, some over 75 years ago. It's no surprise that the top performers of the day, this will never be remembered in 75 years, I'm sorry, that song. It's no surprise that the top performers of the day clamored to be a part of Paramount's biopic in 1946, and that the same thing happened in the reboot nearly 60 years later for DeLovely. And it won't be a surprise for Porter enthusiasts when whatever hot stuff younger singer begs to be in a third remake of Porter's remarkable life somewhere down the road. Because here we have a man who himself was the top, who we get a kick out of, who does something to us in ways that we can't always put into words. So let's do it. Let's fall in love with Cole Porter. All of him.
Thank you, Richard. Sorry, I forgot about that Windy City Times component there.
10.5 years.
I know. Richard Knight is my best friend and principal tormentor. So. I'd like to introduce now the gentleman who sponsored the drive to raise money for this plaque. He is just a tremendous guy. We met at a screening of DeLovely, which Richard's Queer Film Society and the Legacy Project co-hosted, and I got this cryptic email from this guy that I just saw in passing as he was walking down the aisle and saying that he wanted to sponsor the Cole Porter plaque. It's like, oh, wow. And we started having a talk, and he told me about his father and his family story, and it just blew me away. So the fact that we've actually done this is awesome. Gregory Blue Pitsley.
Thank you. I'm so glad that can you hear me? I can't hear myself. Is it on?
It's on.
Hello. I'm glad that they took all the lines, because I mean, I was going to talk about the Queer Film Society, and I was going to talk about where I was inspired to do this. I was inspired at a Queer Film Society screening of DeLovely, and Victor was there talking about this year's inductees to the Legacy Walk, and one of them is Cole Porter, and he said, we're still looking for somebody to take on the sponsorship, and I thought, well, I guess I'm here for a reason tonight. I go to all the Queer Film Society screenings anyway, but it definitely resonated with me. My dad and Cole Porter were friends in New York after World War II, when my dad and his cousin went to New York to break into showbiz. My father had very early identified or self-identified as being male preference, but he grew up near the Mississippi River in Galena, and there wasn't a whole lot of homosexual activity going on, at least nothing public there. Oh, my dad had a lot of deep, dark things that happened to him, of course, as people in that generation did. A lot of abuse by cousins and his brother, and whole bunch of other things, but we won't talk about that today. But after World War II, he had served in the Philippines and was on a destroyer that was sunk in the Pacific Ocean, and floating in lifeboats for several days until they were rescued. It was an interesting story. He had a lot of chums from the Army that were all straight, that remained close to him for the rest of his life. He came back to the States, and he was like, okay, what do I do now? So he was like Cole Porter, he was a multi-talented person. He had a fantastic voice. He was a very, very gifted piano player. He could sit down at the piano for hours and play whatever. People could walk up and say, why don't you play that next? And he would segue into the next song, and then somebody would say, Bob, I can't sing in that key. Can you do it in G flat? And he would say, okay, fine. And then he'd ripple something away, and then he'd be playing it in another key. So he'd spend all night taking whoever was at the party, whoever wanted to stand at the piano, through all kinds of ups and downs of emotion, and they would dance and sing, and my father was also a great dancer, and he was tall and good looking, and he figured, what the hell, I'm going to go to New York and become a Broadway star. What he didn't really have was what Cole Porter had, I think, that made him so successful, was just the real panache, or the real guts to just do what he wanted and just put it out there. My dad was a songwriter, he was a singer, he was a dancer, he was a talented actor. He's an extremely charming individual, but he didn't have a lot of drive, or he didn't have the confidence in himself, which I think was lacking due to the fact that he was kind of beaten down as a kid emotionally, saying he wasn't worth things because he was gay, so he lost that drive. His cousin, who was in tow, wasn't as gifted as my dad or as good looking, so his name was George Eels, E-E-L-S, and he went on to write a biography of Cole Porter called The Life That Late He Led. My dad and George, after a few years of being actor, model, waiter types in New York, went back to Freeport, Illinois, actually, and my dad was working in the record store when he met my mom, and the rest is history. They got me out of the deal. He did tell my mother, she knew kind of right away that he was gay, and before they actually tied the knot, he said, well, I got to tell you something, I really prefer having sex with men. And my mom said, well, let's figure it out. So they went ahead and did it. They stayed married for 10 years, which was, I guess, considerable length of time for an unsatisfying relationship for my mom. They had a lot of fun together, though, and they got me. So, and then, so anyway, that is what inspired me to do it. I want to say something about Cole Porter, just briefly, to add to what Richard was saying. I think that Cole Porter's songs are going to be, they're so eternal because they, and I really think it has something to do with that sort of semi-closeted life that he led. And because the songs that my dad wrote were very much like that too. I don't think anything quite captures the joy, the effervescence, the pizzazz, and the blues, and the poignancy of being in love, falling out of love, and being lonely, as the closeted individual does. I think closeted people feel it that much more. We're lucky now that we don't have to be so closeted, but I think that's why he wrote such great songs. I really think that a lot of it had to do with his shadow side, or whatever you call it. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you for coming, and thanks to the people out there who supported my sponsorship.
Thank you, Blue. Okay, moment we've all been waiting for. I'd like to welcome Kevin Goldwater and a couple of other kids from Lincoln Park High School to do the honors. They're going to read you the text of the plaque.
Cole Porter. Cole Porter remains one of America's all-time greatest composers and songwriters, one of the few who wrote both the lyrics and the music. His hits include the musical comedies The Gay Divorce in 1932, Anything Goes in 1934, Panama Hattie in 1939, course, Kiss Me Kate in 1948 and Can Can in 1952, and featured songs like Night and Day, I Get a Kick Out of You, I've Got You Under My Skin, and Begin the Grind. He worked with legendary stars like Fred Astaire, Ethel Merman, Fanny Brice, Judy Garland, Gene Kelly, Roy Rogers, Bing Crosby, Mary Martin, and the Andrews Sisters, and is considered one of the principal contributors to the great American songbook. He married his close friend, socialite Linda Lee Thomas, in 1919, a union that assured her social status while increasing his chances for success in his career. He lived a happy, publicly acceptable life, but Porter's reputation as a regular fixture at some of the underground Hollywood's most notorious gay gatherings led to some hushed rumors with upper-crust circles that threatened Thomas's social standing. They separated in the early 1930s, but they did not divorce, and remained close friends. In 1937, Porter was crippled when his legs were crushed in a riding accident. He was in the hospital for months, struggling against mental and physical decline, though he continued to write with some success for the next several years. But the death of his beloved mother in 1952, followed by his wife's passing in 1954, and the amputation of his right leg in 1958 took its toll. His spirit broken, reliant on alcohol and painkillers, and fighting gastric ulcers, pneumonia, and numerous compounding maladies, Porter slipped into severe depression and never wrote another song. He spent the remaining years of his life in seclusion with his longtime companion, Ray Kelly, whose children still receive half of Porter's royalties. He died of kidney failure on October 15, 1964. He was 73. So that's Cole Porter.
And we welcome Cole Porter to the Legacy Walk. Okay, the next one up is Sally Ross.